Hello, this is Heather Cole with Lodestar Solutions, and you are attending What You Need to Know About TM1 and BI Integration webinar. We designed these webinars to give you additional information and kind of point you in the right direction. So today we're assuming that you have a little bit of knowledge on TM1 and a little base knowledge on BI. We'll try and fill in the gaps where that is not true. So a little bit about Lodestar Solutions. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, we are a premier reselling partner providing competitive quotes on both licenses of IBM software as well as support renewals. And we've saved our clients literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on support renewals. And how we do this is to make sure that you don't have too big of a price increase over the prior year, and additionally to make sure you have the right product mix. We have a whole webinar on licensing, or if you have specific questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we can help you walk through what licenses you own. In addition to selling licenses and support renewal, we are a full service provider with consultants that can come on-site and do on-site training that can be customized and tailored to your organization. We can help you with your implementation, project management, and of course, technical assistance for upgrades and installs. We do cross-certify our consultants. That makes us unique in that our consultants are expected and trained to have a baseline understanding of data warehousing, business intelligence, and TM1. This allows us to design the most efficient models for your organization. We're on the mid-market and FPM advisory boards from IBM, and we're also a beta test site for all new IBM software in the Cognos Business Analytics group. We host a number of these webinars, and we are a certified woman-owned small business for those of you that need to get your points. So today we're going to go over why you would integrate TM1 and BI. We're going to ensure that you understand what a measures dimension is in TM1. We'll talk about levels. Then we'll talk about how you create the Framework Manager project to define your data source. We'll create and publish a cube in Framework Manager, and then you would create the Report Studio. So we'll walk you through the process and also talk about tips and tricks as we go through. So the first thing is, why do you want to integrate TM1 and BI? For those of you that are more on the BI side and want to become familiar with TM1, TM1 is a very robust budgeting, planning, forecasting, what-if modeling, financial reporting tool. It's like Excel on super steroids. And if you only have BI, which tends to look at actuals and what has occurred, it's like driving down the road with only a rear-view mirror, because you're not seeing where you want to go. If you're only reporting on actuals, you see where you've been. TM1 provides the level of detail of where we want to go and where our forecast is guiding us. So you definitely want to incorporate your TM1 data and your plan and forecast data into your dashboards and your BI solution. So dashboards really need to include both projections and history to be relevant to the end users. If you want to learn more about dashboarding, we do have a destination dashboarding workshop as well as a webinar on this topic. So the first thing you need to know is in TM1, it's very important that you design your models understanding, appreciating, and acknowledging your reporting requirements. So when you design models in TM1, there's actually 4 major components that we need to look at and blend them together to create the totality of the circumstances for our model. So the first one, functionality. What do you need the TM1 model to do? Pretty basic, right? You're probably going to look at your existing Excel spreadsheets and say, what does it do? What do I need this to do? And what does it not do that we want this new tool to do? The second thing you're going to look at is your reporting requirements. You need to know your end game. What level of detail do you need to come out for a reporting requirement? And then we reverse engineer to make sure that our planning models have that level of detail. You'd be surprised how many times I've seen people use other consulting firms. They come to us and they're like, you know, the model doesn't do what we want. We said, what's your reporting requirements? And they said, why are you asking that? That's a BI thing. No, it's not a BI thing. It's an us thing. It's BI and TM1 have to work together to meet those reporting requirements. The third component that you're going to look at is security. At what level do you need the model secure? Is it down to the department level? Is it at a legal entity level? Is it at a timekeeper or person level if you're doing a headcount model? So understand your security needs. You want to design your models so they are most efficient for security, so you have to minimum maintenance. The other thing to consider is your TM1 and BI security are going to be integrated. So the security you set in TM1 will pass through and affect some of your BI reporting. And then the fourth component is the flexibility you want in the model. Even if you are not going to add certain functionality coming out of the gate with TM1, but know that you want to add it later, make sure you design your models so that it can accommodate that. It's kind of like building a house. If I know that at a later date I want to add a sunroom on, where that sunroom is going to go is not going to be a load-bearing wall. We want to do the same thing with our models for TM1. And then, of course, we need to design them for scalability and performance. For those of you familiar with TM1, you'll know that it's very server-based in that the server does the work. Therefore, when we create reports in BI that are reporting off TM1, we may want to consider having separate reporting cubes within TM1. And that way, when those reports are refreshed, they will call back to the reporting cube and not the primary planning cube. This will allow for better performance for the end users on both sides. So the first step, now that we have our design, our TM1 models kind of laid out and designed considering our reporting requirements, our security, our flexibility, and so forth, we want to do the first step, and that is to assign the measures dimension in the particular cube that we're going to publish. That is the cube that is going to be passing data from TM1 into BI. So we're going to right-click on the cube to be published in TM1 and select Properties. In the Measures Dimension box, we're going to click the Measures Dimension and assign it. We're also going to assign a time dimension. Note, the TM1 server must be running so you can connect to this as a data source. So let's look at what this looks like. So in our TM1, we're going to show our cubes there on the left-hand side, and we can see we have a financial cube. We're going to right-click that and pull up the sub-menu and go to Properties. When we pull up the cube Properties, you'll notice there's a designation area for Measures Dimension and Time Dimension. This is where you want to click the drop-down and assign those dimensions. Note, if you fail to do this, it will error out on the back end when we get to Framework Manager, and I'll talk to you about that. But you definitely want to assign this. If you don't get into TM1, you're a BI person, you want to report off TM1, you need to sit down with the power user in TM1 and explain to them what you need. And by the way, you two should be working in lockstep. You should understand how your models impact each other so that you don't have any surprises. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to name hierarchy levels within our TM1 dimensions. So what this will do is allow for a much easier time for the BI side to understand what this data is. You can assign your own custom names to the hierarchy levels of the TM1 dimensions by using the Hierarchy Properties Control Cube. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to open up this Control Cube and make sure that we can see the hierarchy properties. We're going to go into that, and what's going to happen is we're going to assign the different names for the levels. When we do this, we can use those new names that we assign to be used in Cognos Report Studio, in MDX statements, or other MDX OLAP tools. We can also assign the default number for the dimension. So let's take a look at this. The TM1 dimension levels are automatically 0, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. We're going to give it a new name. So we're going to name level 3 the individual. Level 2 is going to be what state they what city they reside. Level 1 is going to be what state, and then level 0 is going to be our total. So that when it passes through a report studio, we can see state, city, and individual, and not just rely on level 1, level 2, and level 3, and try and think about what those mean. So let's look at the effects of this. On this slide, I have what it looks like if we only have the members, and you'll see that we have products, members, and then all products, and then named descriptions, and so forth. On the left, we show that we have levels on to that. So you can see the hierarchy and the roll-up is a little bit different there. The attributes and aliases not mapped in Framework Manager will be listed in the cube directly under the hierarchy if no level names are specified, or under each level if they're specified. So where we have our levels defined, it will assign those attributes and aliases for us and map them. So let's talk about how do we specify the levels in TM1. The first thing is you're going to go into TM1 Architect. This is where our power users are. And we're going to click on the View menu and select Display Control Objects. This is kind of like a toggle, so if they were already on, by checking this, you're going to turn them off. We want to make sure we can display those control objects, and those are denoted by the curly bracket. In the navigation pane, we're going to click on click to expand the cubes, and we're going to open the Hierarchy Properties Control Cube. Notice the squiggly bracket prior to that, that tells us it's a control cube. We're going to click the title dimension list to select the dimensions for which we want to assign the level names. So click on that dimension, and in the default member cell, you're going to enter the existing element name to set as the default. Note, it allows for filtering the dimensions when TM1 data is retrieved from Report Studio, and entering the name at the top level in the dimension hierarchy will also show so that all the dimensions elements are retrieved by default. So you definitely want to assign these. The next step is to enter your own custom name for each hierarchy level that exists. So that's we're going to enter in city, state, or in this screenshot, we can see that we put director, VP, manager for the different levels. After configuring the name levels, you must do one of the following. This is very important. So if you haven't caught anything yet, this is important. When you change these levels and you add names and details to them so they're not generic and just say 1, 2, and 3, you need to either restart the IBM Cognos TM1 server. I don't mean the physical server. I mean the server as we call it in TM1. It's kind of like an application. So we're going to have to restart that TM1 server. Or alternatively, if you don't want to bounce everyone off the system and restart that server, you can run the refresh MDX hierarchy function in the Turbo Integrator process. It's a really easy process to run. It's predefined for you, and all it does is tell the system kind of to refresh those. Go look, I gave you some new hierarchies. Go peek at it and let me use it in BI. So you might want to go with the Turbo Integrator process. Little heads up, this is where our tips and our tricks come in. Changes to the element names or dimension structure are not automatically detected by the name levels features. So if you add stuff, you might need to go do a little maintenance. If your dimension changes, you must first manually update the named level assignments in the Hierarchy Properties Control Cube, just like when we created it. And then you need to either restart that TM1 server or run the refresh MDX hierarchy. So anytime you actually type in changes in that Hierarchy Properties Cube, you got to go and kind of tell the server that you're refreshing that. A little gotcha or watch out section here. If the TM1 cube name has a level name like products, and the member in the hierarchy, or so in your list, is also named products, when the cube is published, it will most likely error out. So be careful and give them unique names, you can do something as simple as putting another character at the end of that, like a period. For those of you familiar with MUNs in BI, level names will be part of the MUN, the member unique name in BI. And note that the report will break if a member is moved to another level or a level name is changed. So if you go in that product hierarchies area and you change the level name, your report will probably break. In Query Studio Analysis Studio, in Analysis Studio, you will be prompted to fix it, but in Report Studio and Query Studio, it will error out. I don't believe this has changed in 10.2. I haven't candidly tested it, but I still think that that's true, that only Analysis Studio will warn you. So changing aliases could also break a report. So watch out for those changes. The next step is we're going to publish a cube in Framework Manager. So what you're going to do there, for those of you that are more Team 1 people, this is where you call up your BI friend and you say, hey, how can I do this? What they'll do is and you'll also need security and access to do this, but you will open Framework Manager and create a new project. And in the wizard, you're going to select the data source. So we're going to first select our data source, and when it gives us a drop-down list of those data sources, we're going to be able to choose here New, and then follow the wizard to set TM1 as your data source. Remember that the server name should be the name of the TM1 application you are connecting to. It is not the physical server. It is a TM1 server name. That's the same thing that we were stopping and starting when we changed our levels. And remember to test your connection. So here on the screen, you can see where I've specified my new data source as a TM1, and then I went ahead and tested that connection. So we're going to connect to this TM1 server, and once we do that, it will show us the cubes that we have available to us. And you're going to select which cube you're going to use as your data source. Note, at this point, if you get an error, you probably did not designate your measures dimension in our first step. So you're going to go back to TM1 or call your TM1 administrator and say, hey, need your help on that reporting cube that we created. Can you assign the time and measures dimensions for me? And they should be able to do that by right-clicking and going to the properties of that cube. So we can also select the locales. You might want to repeat this for each alias table. So if you have multiple alias tables and languages that you wish to include, the alias tables are used in TM1 as another name to denote a particular item. So it's kind of similar to the fact that let's say in general ledger land, maybe you had a natural account number and you brought in a new general ledger. It has a different account number. It also has a name. Those could all be aliases for the same data point. So if you want to bring those in, you would do this under the locales. Alias tables not mapped will be listed along with other attributes in BI. So you really want to map those. The next thing you're going to do is publish the cube in Framework Manager. So you're going to create and publish the package. Note you can have multiple cubes in one package, and you can also combine TM1 cubes and relational data structures. But watch out. If you have multiple cubes, let's say I had 5 cubes in my planning model in TM1, and I wanted to bring them all over. This could negatively impact my performance in BI because the metadata for all those cubes in the package will be loaded. So those can be very, very large depending on your model. So what you may want to do instead is create a cube that is uniquely designed for your reporting needs. It may be a cube that nobody in TM1 actually really sees. It just stages the data to be passed to BI, so that we don't have to report or, publish multiple cubes. Multiple cubes in a package allows you to build a report that displays data from the different cubes. So that may be the benefit, but instead you might want to build that reporting cube that has everything all together, and then you don't have to deal with the multiple cube issue. No, you cannot combine data from multiple cubes into a crosstab, list, or chart. Again, another reason why you might want to have a reporting cube. At Lodestar, we strongly recommend that you have a reporting cube that is staging that data. That allows the planning people who typically change their mind a lot and change their models to make all the changes they want without greatly impacting the BI side that's reporting off that ultimate data. So let's talk about when do I need to republish my cube. So republishing is required after you add or remove a dimension. So if I completely changed my cube and I added a new versions dimension to my cube, I need to republish. If I've made changes to TM1 security, I need to republish because this brings the security from TM1 over to BI. And of course, as we said earlier, if you specify or change my level names, I need to republish the data to Framework Manager. But I do not need to republish my data if I've added or removed members in a dimension. So if I have a dimensional list of natural account numbers for my chart of accounts, and I add a new account number in the chart of accounts, I do not need to republish. The system will see that, it will add it, and it will also pass that automatically through BI. Additionally, we do not need to republish if data changes. For those of you that were old Cognos planning, formerly known as a datum clients, you had to republish even after data changes occur. We do not need to do that in TM1. It will automatically pick it up. So once we do that, we have our Framework Manager package off of our TM1 cube, or cubes as it may be, and we can, from there, simply build our Report Studio report. Just similar to like we've always done in Report Studio. So there are a couple of things to consider when you set this up and want TM1 and BI to integrate. The first one is you want to make sure you have your security mode in TM1 set to level 5. And what that is Cognos 8 or Cognos 10 security. User groups from both TM1 and Cognos BI will be leveraged. And we do this in the, if you're not familiar with this file, there's a file out there called TM1s-config, and that we can open it up in Notepad and edit that config file. If you're not familiar with this, talk to your BI administrator, your TM1 administrator, and ask them to help you. And you will need to set that to 5 to share security between both applications, BI and TM1. The next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that, of course, our integrated security mode is set to 5. That's the integrated. And then some other settings that we might want to play with here are the TM1 client, which is in the TM1 p.ini file. Allow import CAM clients to true. And then we're going to define a user, Cognos user, to function as a TM1 administrator. This is required. So you're going to add the user, display it in TM1 as namespace. And then again, we're going to assign that security mode. So here's a couple tips. Create a multi-cube framework package only when a single report requires queries from more than one cube. Instead of doing this, you may consider creating a reporting cube that pulls all this data in to one place. Remember, TM1 models get updated automatically. So if you change something in the model, and it will feed automatically over to your reporting cube and thus feed automatically to BI. We don't have to run any links or processes to do that. Again, those multi-cube framework packages are going to move a lot of information over, so they may have slower response times than putting it in a single cube. Users must have cube security to all cubes in the package to use the package. Again, another reason why you might want to just have a reporting cube and give them access to that reporting cube. If you create a single cube framework package for package load performance, again, we talked about that. And then TM1 string values can be reported in BI. So if you actually have strings of data, not just numeric data, we can use this in BI using list reports. An example of this will be comment cubes. Some other tips, changing the level names in TM1 after BI report is created. With a previous level name, it's going to break the report. You're going to have to go in. If you've already changed the level name, you're going to have to stop and start that TM1 server so that passes through, and then you're going to have to check that report. You may have to tweak it a little bit. We republish our TM1 package to display newly added TM1 attributes or aliases in BI. So if we've added some attributes or aliases, it's got to be republished. If we change the alias of a measures dimension, it will break a report until it's republished. Remember that measures dimension is like a backbone, so it's very important. If we didn't designate the measures dimension in TM1 initially, we're going to have issues when we get to the framework manager. We recommend that you avoid using aliases for the measures dimension at all. That way you can avoid it breaking it if possible. So element maintenance does not require republishing of TM1 package to BI. So if I simply took an element, let's say travel expense, and renamed it to airfare, I don't need to republish that package. It will pass that information automatically over to BI. I definitely want to take a moment and talk about unbalanced hierarchies. So for those of you that are not familiar with unbalanced hierarchies, they happen a lot. In TM1, we don't mind them. We're comfortable with them. In reporting, that usually causes a little bit of a hiccup. So an example of an unbalanced hierarchy is the picture over to the right, where we can see corporate and the two divisions. But notice in Division 1, the detailed data is down to the department level. But in Division 2, the detail level just sets the divisional level. This is what we call an unbalanced or ragged hierarchy. So in some cases, what you'll want to do in TM1 is actually build a dummy level under Division 1 so that they're all at the same level. Unbalanced hierarchies typically behave reasonably in Analysis Studio and in Report Studio using descendant-based set expressions. So you can get around it in Report Studio, but just know it's there. My suggestions is to make sure that you talk to your TM1 designers and ask them, so, you know, let's get on the same team. For those of you that are on the BI side and your organization as TM1, it's kind of organized and owned and controlled by someone else, go take that person to lunch. And if you're on the TM1 side and you're the power user and you don't really talk to the BI people, you go take them to lunch. It's really important that you guys work together because the little things that we can do on both sides can make the other person's life so much easier. Again, on unbalanced hierarchies, they tend to behave unpredictably in Query Studio or in Report Studio when they're combined with relational constructs. So again, communicate, map out these structures. What you might want to do in TM1 is add another department level there. Okay, so that is our quick debrief on tricks and tips of integrating TM1 and BI. One of the things that I want to encourage you to take a look at, a lot of people don't know that they own, this is our little Lodestar cheat sheet to licensing. It's on the BI side here, and I do that for a reason, is that a lot of, if you have TM1, you're pretty familiar with TM1. If you're a BI person, you may not realize that now, if you have an advanced business author or higher, so maybe you're one of the power users, you have access to this tool called Cognos Insight. This is a new tool, relatively new to the Cognos family. It came out with Cognos 10. Super powerful. It's a lightweight version of BI and TM1 all bundled together in a desktop software. And you can download that today. You can play with it. You can go to the analyticszone.com. It's a website owned and operated by IBM. They have tons of samples out there, but it's great to play with and get a better understanding of what TM1 does if you're a BI person. Additionally, Cognos Insight can pull Framework Manager data down, so you can use Framework Manager as a data source. And we can also push things back up. So if you're not familiar with Cognos Insight, check out our future webinars. We have a lot of webinars on Cognos Insight, or email me and say, hey, Heather, I want more information on Cognos Insight. My email address is listed at the bottom of the screen. It's hcole@lodestarsolutions.com. But Cognos Insight is super powerful, and for those of you that are in the BI world, and your finance department is pushing you because they need some autonomy in their reporting and they need but they need BI functionality, have them check out this Cognos Insight because it may give them the flexibility that they need while leveraging the content that you've already developed. So that's what we have for today. We have tons of upcoming events. We're also about to overhaul our website to make it even better for you guys to go get information. If there's ideas on webinars that you'd like to see in the future, please go ahead, send us an email and say, hey, I'd like information on this. Additionally, I want to offer out to you guys, we have a new service that we're offering. It's an ROI consultation. And what it is we set up with you as a client a 1-hour presentation. You send us an email and say, hey, we'd like you to do this consultation with us. We will pull your entitlements from IBM and we'll educate you on what licenses you have. We'll go in detail into all these areas that are across the top on this schematic. And we'll educate you on what clients use that for and what you could use it for. A lot of this you may have never even heard of, like dynamic cubes. So if you're interested in that, we are, for a limited time, offering this as a free 1-hour session. Email me, say, Heather, I'd love the ROI consultation. We've done a lot of these. They've been a huge success. Everyone's like, wow, I didn't know it had that much power. So let us know, send us an email, and that's what we have for today. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat section within your GoToMeeting. And additionally, we're going to send you out a survey at the end of this broadcast. We really appreciate it if you fill out the surveys. They are what makes us understand what's working, what's not working, what information you need. So it will just take a moment to do.